Speaker of the House, Tina Kotek represents District 44, North and Northeast Portland.
Morning.
Always good to see you. Pick a chair. So, Speaker, what is your middle name?
My middle name?
Yeah. Is that something you're willing to disclose?
The Senate President knows that I don't have an official middle name.
You don't?
No, but he knows my confirmation name and used it. Well, what event was that? I can't remember.
I don't know.
4 years ago? It's Louise.
Louise. I like that. Oh, he did use that.
Yes.
He did
Tina
use that.
Louise.
Tina Louise.
Gilligan's Island.
I thought he was just making fun of you. So,
how you doing, Chris?
I'm
Are we having fun?
awesome.
Are y'all having fun out there?
Yeah, that was a very bracing, interesting session.
Can we have another round of applause for the Senate President? For his comment?
So, Speaker, you have your hands deeply in the budget process. You're very familiar with it. Different perspective or different focus in terms of what the major cost drivers are, what we should be thinking about?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm probably going to repeat some of the things that we're really lucky to have Senator Devlin, as you could tell from his knowledge of the budget. Probably going to repeat a few things. I've been a student of the state budget probably for about 15 years, even before I got elected, so I've seen the contractions and the growth spurts and the things we've done, the ups and downs. You know, one of the things as I was reading the playbook last night, you know, the idea that when we talk about unsustainable spending, I want to make sure that people understand why those words are a little challenging, and they might even be misleading, because it seems to imply that the spending decisions that we've been making at the state are somehow the wrong choices. And I think, you know, there are a lot of things that drive the budget at the state level, variety of cost drivers. In fact, I wanted to write them all down so I didn't miss them, because this is from our nonpartisan legislative fiscal office. We have things like population growth and demographics and inflation and healthcare costs, federal policy decisions, which of course are kind of a wild card going into the next year, lawsuits, ballot initiatives, state policy decisions we make, and then a few other things. So there are a lot of cost drivers. And I think if we have the conversation we want to have here today, I think we need to have a comprehensive look at all those cost drivers. And I do think it's fair to say that pension obligations are part of those cost drivers. But one of the things, just a factoid that I want to share today is, if we were to fund all of the ballot measures that were passed this last month, all three of those, CTE, outdoor school, and lottery, the lottery measure for veteran services, the total of money we would need to cover all those is actually more of a budget impact than the pension costs in the next biennium. So we have a variety of things that are facing us. You know, demographic-wise, we have an aging senior population here in the state. That's a big part of the human service budget driver. We have decided in this state to make sure that seniors can live as independently as possible, as long as possible, in the setting that works for them. That's a choice. That also impacts our ability to provide the types of services and programs to make that happen. And that's a huge driver for us. Certainly you heard about Medicaid costs and, you know, what we're doing there. I think everybody here, particularly a lot of the sponsors for this event, would agree that the choice we made to have Medicaid expansion, to make sure our most vulnerable Oregonians had access to health care, was the right choice to make. But as you heard from Senator Devlin, now that expectation of us having to pick up more of the tab has now come due, and we have to figure out how to pay for that. But that wasn't a bad spending choice. That was the right choice to make, and now we have to figure out how to pay for it. If we look at our K-12 system, in 2014, we had the highest student enrollment we've ever had in this state. Our population is growing. We want to have the best schools, but I can't imagine anybody in this room thinks what we have in terms of the length of our school year, the size of our classrooms, the supports we know actually work for students are actually getting funded. So on the spending side, we have to work comprehensively together to figure out how to pay for those things. And again, the choices we make in spending are important, and how we decide to pay for them is also important.
So can I ask you a question that's not on my card? So I was very curious listening to you speak, and that I think a lot of business people in the room might assume the Democratic Speaker of the House, when they think about solving this kind of issue, only thinks about new revenues. When you're looking at those cost drivers, how much of your attention goes to how to make the way we are currently functioning more efficient or create a better outcome?
Well, that's a great question. I think you definitely see it in our Medicaid work. I've been a champion of our transformation of our health plan, trying to make sure that we're doing things most cost effectively as we continue to maintain access and quality of care. I think we've had a lot of success. We had a lot of success in reinvesting in our communities around public safety and trying to reduce the growth of the need for new prison beds here in the state. Down in the dark rooms of legislative fiscal during the 3 years of the budget cuts related to the Great Recession, unfortunately, we made a lot of cuts that really hurt people. And even though we had revenue increases that resulted in Measures 66 and 67, there were significant program cuts. So none of these choices, none of the puts and takes are very easy. And I think that's, if there's one thing I would like you to understand today, as someone who doesn't spend so much time with the budgets, is they are hard. They are interrelated, and we need to look at it holistically if we're really going to solve the problem.
Thank you. So similar question to what I posed to Senator Courtney. You're sitting in a room full of business leaders and elected officials and nonprofit leaders, education leaders. Do you see a pathway forward, and is there something you want to challenge us to think about?
Well, I think, I'm encouraged by the opening sessions and some of the conversation. I think the business community has an important role to play. The whole private sector does. Particularly from the business perspective, we all know that your businesses have the best opportunity to succeed when our communities are safe, that people are healthy, that our schools are strong. We need each other to make this work. From the state perspective, we don't have the luxury of cherry picking which cost driver we're going to focus on. We have to focus on all of them. And unlike businesses, we are accountable to the entire people of Oregon. Our bottom line is a little different. Our bottom line is making sure that everybody in this state can succeed. And even though we have different bottom lines, we all need each other, and we can work on this together. I think one of the things that I think we all need is more transparency and honesty of how we move forward. I think one of the challenges for us as policymakers is making decisions with the best information possible. One of the things that I think became apparent over the last couple of years, it's really hard for us to make tax policy in this state when we really don't really know how much, for example, large corporations are paying. So we're going to have to figure out how to have better data and more transparency on that so we can make better choices around tax breaks or even tax reform. We are a little bit working in a vacuum, so we're going to need your help on that, because if we don't have more transparency and honesty on what's coming inside, it's really hard for us to make decisions to have the additional revenue and make the investments that we need to do in this state.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent.